Too often in politics, the justifications offered for a legislative proposal are not the real reasons behind the bill. This is part of what gives politicians a bad name. They spend too much time using arguments that don't hold water because they know that if they tell the public what they are really up to, the American people will not support them. That is what is going on with H.R. 1581 today. Most of the arguments you are going to hear, if you stop and actually consider them, are completely unpersuasive. For example, we will hear that we need to release wilderness study areas and inventoried roadless areas that were not recommended for wilderness because Congress should not be bound by recommendations made by the executive branch 20 or 30 years ago. Does that sound like something Congress should do? Just as we don't base our health policy on 30-year-old science or our defense policy on 30-year-old maps, we should not bind ourselves to agency recommendations based on field work done during the Reagan administration. What's more, the Republican majority in this House has made attacking federal agencies and employees an art form. To come in now and say Congress needs to follow these bureaucrats' recommendation to the letter lacks credibility. And most telling is the fact that the legislation before us only follows agency recommendations to release wilderness study in roadless areas. These recommendations were accompanied by recommendations to designate new wilderness, but proponents of this bill think those suggestions aren't worth following. The other arguments we will hear today are similarly suspect. The Wilderness Act already allows any action needed to fight fires or to protect public safety. We already have hundreds of thousands of miles of roads crisscrossing our national forests, providing fully adequate recreational access. Hunting and fishing are already allowed in wilderness and wilderness study areas. Since enactment of the Wilderness Act, many of the fastest growing communities in the country have been those that will have large areas of beautiful, protected, open spaces. H.R. 1581 is not really about any of these things. That is why these claims fail even to withstand minimal scrutiny. The truth is, this bill is no different from much of the legislation that has come from the majority on this committee this year. H.R. 1581 is simply a wealth transfer from the American people to the oil and gas and mining and timber industries. If you scratch the surface of this bill, you will find drill, baby, drill. The stunning vistas, the open spaces, the recreational opportunities, wildlife, clean air, clean water provided by these areas belongs to all Americans. It's part of our American heritage. It is something that has been passed on to us, and as Americans, we have a responsibility to pass on to those Americans who come after us. And this bill would simply bundle it up and transfer it to oil and gas and mining and timber companies to convert into corporate profits. That is not part of our American ethos. We have a responsibility to be balanced. We have a responsibility to ensure that all Americans have this treasure that is left for them. Those areas were passed into our hands by our predecessors here in Congress, and H.R. 1581 is an abdication of our responsibilities, a failure of our stewardship. It is by definition not balanced because they did not listen to all of the recommendations, only those that selectively benefit the imbalance that benefits corporate America and not all Americans, which were also part of that package. So I urge that all who are listening keep that in mind until we can have a discussion, a debate that's something that is balanced, which is produced from this committee. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back the balance of my time.